Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's me, Nisi. I'm going to do a pre-recorded video today over the weekend on Friday and Saturday. I did a couple of live streams on my Facebook page, but I thought it'd be more beneficial for me to do this video, upload it in a couple of different platforms, Facebook and also YouTube. So what I would like to talk about today, I want to pick back up on our lessons from the Sacred Secretion, okay? I have 3 different books that I'm going to be, actually 4 different books that I'm going to be tying into. But before I get started, I wanted to share this cream with the ladies because I'm at that age now where I have this whole hormonal thing going on, right? I will be 55 in a couple of weeks if the Creator of all sees fit. And I know some of you don't celebrate birthdays, and I said that I don't either, but it's the day that I came into this avatar body. Let me put it that way. Happy Solar Day, I guess is what you want to call it. Anyway, I wanted to share this cream that I got. It is natural and it's organic. It's called, can you see it? Wild Yam Cream. I was looking at a video that I shared on my Facebook from Barbara O'Neill, where she was talking about the hormonal issues that a lot of us women face, and that's younger women and older women, right? So I'm using this cream, and you use it twice a day for 3 weeks, and then the week that you get your cycle, you stop. Well, a little bit about me, you guys know that I don't have that anymore. So what I have been doing though is I started using this cream this week, and I'm going to make a short video on it about how I feel prior to doing it and afterwards. But this is what it looks like. You're only supposed to take like a little fingernail size of it. And this cream, this bottle should last 3 months is what Barbara's saying. So I got 2 bottles of this, which is a 6-month supply for about, I don't know, it's under $24. So I'm going to utilize that. And then also this stuff, Minovir, this is hard to get. I mean, it sells out quite a bit. I started taking that about 2 weeks ago. So I'll let you know how that goes, ladies, because I know when we get to a certain age, I can't take hormones because of the cancer that runs in my family with both of my sisters and my cousins and my dad passing from cancer. I can't do the hormones. I'm just not even going to do that, especially when my sisters had breast cancer. So I'm trying to treat it naturally, and then, watching the supplements and things like that I take. So I just wanted to share those 2 things with you. I'll let you guys know how it goes, right? I'll let you know how my symptoms are, if they're improving, if I'm not seeing a difference. I'm keeping a journal, so as to document everything. Also, I'm trying to pull away from drinking Starbucks. I drink it now like once a week at this point. I think twice last week, but today's Monday. I don't plan on going to get any Starbucks. I have my Rise coffee and I have my Mud Water coffee. I did stop my subscription to Rise because I didn't realize they have oats in that coffee. So I'm going to try 2 other brands, and I'm also going to order some Kachava and see how that works for me as well as a meal replacement. So I'll let you guys know what I find, okay? So enough about the personal stuff. Let's get into the reading. I'm going to be reading from The Science of Sacred Secretion. We're going to read chapter 1, The Evolution of the History of Magic. And then we're going to read The Sacred Secretion, Your Complete Guide to the Kundalini Energy, Christ Oil, Alchemy, and the Monthly Seed. I'm going to be reading The Process, which is part 2. So let's read this one first, okay? And then we'll dive into the other one, and I'll try to wrap it up and cross-correlate the 2, okay? Process 2. The light is received by the colostrum and splits into the pituitary and the pineal gland. And this is a copy or a picture of our brain, the top part, if you guys can see it. Okay, and it says, during your appointed secretion, your sacred secretion time phase, the light bespoke the astral influx, comes through the door of the Brahma, also known as the fontanelles. In early Christian mysticism, this opening was known as the Thora Asus, the door of Asus, or Yeshua or Jesus, okay? It is then received by the colostrum, a blood cerebral spinal fluid, CSF barrier. Neurons inside the colostrum branch out and extend around the entire circumference of the brain, much like the crown of thorns. Research shows that the colostrum can act like an on and off switch for the consciousness. So remember when I did part 1 or intro of talking about the pineal gland and giving reference to the pine cone, the 7 seals, the 7 chakras, the 7 churches, the 7 candlesticks, when I stated that in mysticism, the left is considered to be lower consciousness. The right is considered to be higher consciousness or Christ consciousness. When you take a picture and you guys need to research Kirlan photography, Kirlan, where you go take your light body picture, okay? You'll see your aura, right? Well, when you become enlightened or Christed, there is a crown that appears, and it's a light that is actually activated or it's on. And I know some of you probably think that's okie wokey, but it's not. And I'm going to read this part one more time because it makes perfect sense, and this explains what happens alchemically within your body. It says, it is then received by the colostrum, a blood cerebrospinal fluid, which is CSF, in the spinal fluid barrier. The neuron inside the colostrum branches out and extends around the entire circumference of the brain, much like a crown of thorns. That's why you see pictures of Christ with the thorns in his head. Research shows that the colostrum can act like an on and off switch for consciousness. That's where you get Santa Claus from. Colostrum, Santa Claus. Dr. Carey says it is from the colostrum that the wonderful Christ oil is formed. Okay. The plain terms, the light acting on the substances of the brain forms cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF, also known as Christ oil. Okay. In the body, there is a continual exchange occurring between the blood, the CSF, the sexual vital essences, and lymphs. The moon regulates all of these vital fluids. CSF is a saline or salty and alkaline, meaning the electron, a life force, rich. It is secretly known as the blood of the lamb. The CSF ventricles are even shaped like ram horns. And this is what it looks like in this picture. I'm going to try to hold it up where you guys can see it on camera. And it does. It looks like ram horns. That's where you get the blood of the lamb from. That's why they say Christ is a lamb. CSF is the most subtle and electrically charged fluid in the body. And that's in all caps. I'm going to read it again. CSF is the most subtle and electronically charged fluid in the body. The breath, mostly nitrogen 777 and oxygen 888, charges CSF. Superconsciousness awakening, preserving and raising the sacred secretion relies on the charging and transmuting of the subtle fluid. And here is a great picture where it shows the brain, the skull, the cerebellum, the cerebellar tonsils, the spinal cord, the cerebrospinal fluid that goes up and down the cord, the ventral body, and the sacrum. And here it is right here. Okay. And it says CFS, or Christ oil flow cycle. So it shows you a picture of the cycle. Here are a couple of quotes that will help you understand the magic and potential of CSF. And I know in other videos I talked about it refilling 4 times a day. And it does. It takes about 15 minutes per every 33 vertebra, and it refills in a 24-hour day four times a day. 6 times 4 is 24. So yeah. Okay, it says the human brain is surrounded by subtle humidity, CSF, which causes an akashic precipitation, a brain dew, which is more of a luminous ether than a liquid. The dew, however, is more tangible than gas, and as the manna is said to have fallen from heaven, so this dew of thought trickles down between the 2 hemispheres of the cerebrum and finally fills the 3rd ventricle which is the reservoir of this heavenly water. The dew carries in suspension, or as the alchemist might say, is tinctured by the mental activity of the 7 brain stars, which form the northern constellation of man. Paracelsus, thus sums up the mystery. The whole of the microcosm is potentially contained in the liquor vitae, a nerve fluid in which is contained the nature, quality, character, and essence of beings. And that's on page 73, Salt of the Wise. Nitrogen O3, Making Gold, autumn 2016. And it tells you Fontana Editor. That's the author. And then it says the Kundalini utilizes that which is termed spinal fluid or spinal liquid. It actually ionizes CSF and changes its molecular structure and consequently the basic DNA structure of the entire body. Page 243, A Beginner's Guide to Creating Reality by Ramtha. Okay, and it says, Dr. Sepultera's experiments confirm that CSF is the conveyor of the light energies or astral influx in the body. Yes, this means that the monthly astral influx precipitates in the body as CFS, Christ oil. After the light precipitates as CSF in the colostrum, it is differentiated into 2 different potencies by the pituitary gland and the pineal gland. The different hormones and vibrational qualities of the pituitary and pineal enable this division. The 2 potencies are esoterically known as the black kundalini, which is the pituitary, and the white kundalini, which is the pineal or lunar fluid, and solar fire mineral, respectively. Okay, so that gives us a good idea. Okay, so I'm going to mark. We come back, we're going to do process 3. What are the 2 potencies found in the pituitary and pineal glands? That's on process 3. Okay, now chapter 1, the history of magic. As a species, we are clever, but we are not wise. And it says, before diving into the science of the sacred secretion, let's wake up our brain cells by practicing link making between science, intuition, and religion. Throughout my life of teaching and research, I have witnessed a huge increase in the metaphorical interpretations of religious texts and beliefs as the human species in the light of the health epidemic played on us from failed leaders and greed search for answers. Graham Hickok speculates that the spirit world has used evolution to manifest physical entities which consciousness can emerge and express itself through learning lessons on the way. Basically, consciousness was first, and then the physical realm, our world of the projections, followed. And I believe that too. This means that as humans, we are fortunate that universal energies have manifested into us, conscious beings rather than a rock or a jellyfish. We are a social species who crave freedom of thought and awareness. And that's sadly being taken away from us. And we're letting it. Okay. We need trust and connection to feel truly happy and to live a long life in a healthy body. This connection that we once had with Earth has become shattered as we try to play God, and we are now paying the price for that mistake. Fortunately, we live in a remarkable time where human understanding of physics and its relationship to consciousness is rising. During the chapter of this book, I will seek to explain human evolution through the combined options of scientists, historians, and religious texts. First, I will describe scientific and historical-based evidence of evolution, which will be followed by the religious links in bold. Okay. Remember these connections to the best of your ability, as they will be the foundation of many more epiphanies later. Please note, however, that like all areas of science and philosophy, there are differing opinions. The theories presented here are my own and are based on my own interpretations. For example, the involvement of psychedelics in human evolution is a concept supported by such influential figures as Terence McKenna, Dennis McKenna, Jordan Peterson, Professor Guave Dolci, and Dr. Paul Pithets, to name a few. I hope said his name correctly. Probably didn't, but oh well. Yet I am sure that it is an idea that appeals most Darwinists. But even Galileo was once imprisoned for suggesting that the earth orbited the sun. So it is the birth of these new ideas that potentially inform our future understanding of the world. All I ask is that you keep an open mind and conduct your own study. Excuse me. Now, let's start at the beginning as far as we're aware. According to psychologists and neurologists alike, the brain only processes information that it believes to be useful for survival. But this is easily manipulated and changed through repetitive behaviors, programming of the subconscious, and of course, physical experiences. These physical experiences can be altered by stimulants and suppressants, such as drugs. A brief emerging within scientific scholar is that the modern man evolved from apes that were using psychedelic plants. Well, everybody has their own theory, right? But we know the truth. If you research, you'll see. When you ask for the discernment, you'll understand what happened. The current accepted theory of evolution is that several different species of humans once roamed the world, whilst other species such as the Neanderthals and the Heidelbergensis occupied Europe and Asia. Archaeological discovery to date tends to advocate that wild apes began the evolutionary process to form the DNA of Homo sapiens within the depths of Africa. Homo sapiens, wise men, or us, apparently stayed in Africa for at least 100,000 years before migrating and becoming the dominant species of the planet. That's what they tell us. That's their story, or his story. So what enabled these species of humans to survive when all others became extinct? Largely, the women are said to have been the gatherers of fruit and vegetation, whereas the men were the hunters. During the natural cycles of a year, when food sources were scarce, they were starving. It was once at the time that early humans likely recognized the vast sorts of fungi that thrive within the woodlands and from the manure of wild cattle in this climate. Hungry prehistoric humans would have likely consumed the wealth of vegetation, and upon eating these, may have had a psychedelic trip. Interestingly, neurologists have proven that psychedelic drugs actually enhance neuroplasticity, meaning that the neural structure within the brain would have been more susceptible to rewiring to new beliefs, as well as being more creative when problem-solving skills and able to better remember new skills. This makes way for faster learning. Consequently, as a result of these trance states, early humans were better equipped to develop art, speech, and language. Epigenetics, meaning above genetics, as the receptors of these literally stand above DNA strands waiting to adjust cellular output in response to environmental input, is the biological action that allows us to pass cultural beliefs, individual ideas, phobias, and fears, emotional control, and even food preferences down to our own offspring. Psychedelic plants then likely sped up evolution, which would have otherwise taken much, much longer, but by providing humans with enhanced neurogenesis, creativity, problem solving, ability, sex drive, and access to universal information such as tool manipulation, the invention of fire, to advanced food, nutrition, natural laws, etc. I don't subscribe to what we've been taught in school. So I'm reading this because it was getting to a point, and he's laying it out in the foundation of this book, but I do not believe in what we were taught. Okay, so I'm just letting you guys know that. Personally, I think this process is somewhere in the middle of our evolutionary story. This idea is supported by Graham Hickok, whose research has revealed that there were advanced humans living in America long before they inhabited Africa. In fact, Hancock's studies show that humans who were technologically advanced were removed from America by means of natural disaster. Probably meteor impacts, which may have been seen as an act of God to remove wickedness that later caused flooding. But we know who did that. We know what beings caused that. And we know what this is, right? Let's keep reading. And likely migrated to safer shores such as Africa. So what he's saying is that we were here first in the Americas and then we migrated to Africa. Okay? Let's just be clear about that. Here, they would have shared their knowledge with the tribes and possibly even worshipped as messengers of God or shaman. Naturally, these ideologies and philosophies and genetic mutations would have been passed down through the generations due to epigenetics. Also, after evolving so rapidly and effectively in lush green Saharan plains of Africa, a major change in the climate is said to have forced early human migration from the continent. These humans moved away from the unbearable penetrating heat of the whirling and flashing desert sun in search of more manageable climates before settling in Egypt. Here, they harvested from the acai tree, a psychedelic plant that grew abundantly along the river Nile, and shared their experiences of interactions with Gaia. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't there one place the gopher tree actually grows? And if I'm not mistaken, would that not be here in the United States? You guys got to do your research. I'm just going to drop that little rose there for you. Research it. It may be or interest to you that the Eye of Africa shares the exact characteristics and dimensions as the fabled Atlantis described by Plato. And it does. But Atlantis was a period in time as in Egypt was a period in time. So people make a mistake of pinpointing it. Oh, well, here's where this exact location of this place was. This is the exact location this place was. And what you have to understand is these people were technologically advanced and they had multiple places all over the planet. It wasn't just one specific location. Okay. So when you say Egypt or when you say Atlantis or Lemuria, it was all over the world. It wasn't just one location. See, that's where I think a lot of people get confused by that. So, I mean, that's my understanding of it. You may have a different viewpoint, but it was a period in time. It's not just one area. They always want to point you in that one area. That's the hijack, as Kimura would say. The Eye of Africa is a prominent circular structure in the Sahara Desert that is swamped and ancient artifacts can be seen from space. Although denied by government officials, those who have studied the eye are in no doubt that it remains of legendary Atlantis. And you can see boat slips because Roger with Mud Fossil Universities broke that down quite nicely. Plato described Atlantis as an empire that had incredibly advanced in its technology and powerful leaders, but was destroyed after a mass tsunami. Fortunately, details of the area were recorded by the ancient Egyptians. If you would enjoy more information on this, I would suggest you watching the 2011 Visiting Atlantis, Gateway to a Lost World documentary on Gaia. And I do have a Gaia subscription, and I highly recommend you guys check it out. An awareness-enhancing mushroom grew from cow manure to early humans. The cow then was sacred and provided meat, milk, clothing, manure, and access to the gods. People could literally use every part of that animal. It was a gift from the universe that deserved to be worshipped, as those of the modern Hindu faith do. In the Christian Bible and many other religious stories, human life began with a man and a woman, Adam and Eve, who occupied the Garden of Eden. The Bible even describes a river flowing out of Eden to water the garden that split off into 4 branches. The only river in the region that's description and now other biblical symbols that origin from ancient Egypt include that of the crucifix, the winged sun disk, and the sacral beetle. Okay, let me highlight this really quick. Because when I finish up this video, I've got some housework to do before I go back to work tomorrow. And so I'm going to make sure I kind of put that documentary in my watch list. Okay, from the book of Genesis. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree of knowledge was good to eat, and that it was pleasing to the eye and pleasing to contemplate, she took some of it and ate it. She also gave her husband some of it. He ate it. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they discovered that they were naked. The Lord God said, "The man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. What if he now reaches out his hand and takes fruit from the tree of life, also eats it and lives forever?" So the Lord God drove him out of the Garden of Eden, stationed the cherubim and the sword whirling and flashing to guard the way of the tree of life. In the Torah, the acai tree is the tree of life, as is under the acai tree that gods were said to have been born. Note, the acai tree is concentrated in tryptamine, a precursor to the psychedelic compound DMT, which is detailed later. Later in the Bible, God communicated with Moses through a burning bush. The bush also was an acai tree. When burning, the inhalation of this would have caused a psychedelic trip. From Moses was given direct instruction to lead the Israelites out of Egypt and to freedom. Later, after a long and treacherous journey, they finally reached the promised land. Moses is said to have passed away at the age of 120, the same age that the human body is biologically designed to live for if succumb to a healthy internal environment. Yeah, and they changed our DNA. The number 2 chromosomes. You guys need to research that too. And they shortened our telomeres and added a filler, and now it looks like a little shoelace. They tied it. So you can tell we were genetically altered or modified. That's another video. Let me keep reading. Over time, the Christian church grew in power, and by 325 AD was the official faith of the Roman Empire. With their strength and influence, the faith spread like wildfire. As a result, the written memory of our psychedelic evolution and experiences passed down through the generations was almost completely destroyed by strict authorities. To preserve the ancient knowledge of humanity, other means were sought for enhancing the natural spirit molecules within. Teachers would show others how they could still achieve communication with the higher realms of reality without the large drug hits, through progression of internal alchemy by manipulating genetic outputs. What was common in ancient culture, particularly in the light of religious beliefs, as humans thrived in Egypt and worshiped the stars, disagreement between cities were inevitable. For this reason, the documented battles and migrating exodus from Egypt are in fact more likely to represent civil war between groups of beings. The Bible also has many references to people in power controlling the less powerful, often poverty-stricken majority. We can see this from the birth of Jesus, or Yeshua. The Roman government demanded that everyone return to their hometown to register for a census. When Mary and Joseph arrived, they were not permitted to enter into the inns, so had to seek other means of security where they could give birth to a spiritual child. The stable. This is important to remember for later. The wise men gave Jesus gifts of gold, a key conductor of electricity, which is the connector of all life on Gaia, as well as frankincense and myrrh, both of which have psychedelic properties. From here on, Jesus is brought to Egypt until eventually, as an adult, he teaches to gain heaven on earth within, using the stars to guide the way. So, 2 things a note: frankincense and myrrh both have psychedelic properties. The practice of reaching higher realms of being further restricted during the Dark Ages. Anybody believed to using magic? That's what happened with the Salem witch trials. There were women of color, autochthonous indigenous women that look like me, that were burned at the stake. Another little rose. Anybody believed to using magic were labeled as witches and murdered, with all their knowledge and text destroyed along with them. This led the way for religious texts such as the Bible to be taken far more literally, to be believed as fact rather than a cosmic story of the inner spirituality of a man or a woman. A speculated theory is that the top families who seek control of the world actually sanctioned this inhumane act of witch hunting as a way of riddling out the world of ancient knowledge and hence gaining more power. The final nail in the coffin for psychedelic freedom was struck during the 1960s when Western governments banned the use of psychedelic drugs altogether, even for the science purposes only. Yet in some tribal civilizations, the use of powerful psychedelics, particularly plant-based DMT, to enhance communication with the gods is still common. It is predominantly put to effect by shamanism, is the practice of healing, divination, and natural magic. They are seen as dimensional explorers who are able to access or trance states, shape shift also into animals, and use the path options for the future, enabling them to make decisions about when the group should move, should hunt, or go to war. Through the manipulation of sound vibration, breath, illusion, and sexual abstinence, the practitioners enter higher trance states. The shaman also watch over others whilst they experience that drug. During these trips, people regularly interact with beings. Unsurprisingly, these beings are usually humanoids of various colors and made of animal parts. Messages from the gods are often received from angels or other higher beings, such as a shape-shifting entities that take the form of animals. Entities in this form are particularly renowned within the Egyptian and Hindu faiths. These messages also tend to occur within the dream state, which occurs during sleep, deep meditation, or a psychedelic trip. After millennia, these spirituality enhancing plant molecules that literally ingrain into our DNA have rewired the neural structure of the brain, became a distant memory. However, the overwhelming need for meaningful spiritual experiences still pulsates through our biological body, waiting to reawaken. Fortunately, this access to higher dimension lies within us. Plants provide us with large hits of psychedelic molecules all at once. And yes, but we do not take them to reach these states. As conscious beings, we are able to work with nature with our own biological rhythms and the astrological energies to increase our ability to access and interact with these higher vibrating levels of existence. Like a video game for early humans, these psychedelics may have acted like a cheat code, allowing the players to reach higher levels and achieve further advancing missions. And that's what it means when you do this DMT hits and you take these things, these psychedelics. It also is said in scripture that you try to take heaven by force. So, I mean, some people do take these trips and they nut up and they don't come back from it. They go into schizophrenia. There's been some cases of some really bad stuff, having a really bad trip and some people, not making it back, right? But then there are others who have taken it and they're totally fine. I'm just going to leave that right there. You can figure it out. You can figure it out. You can figure out what I'm saying. There are some of us who have taken it and are just fine. Okay. All right, moving on. All right, so it says, like a video game for early humans, these psychedelics may act like a cheat code, allowing the players to reach higher levels of achieve further advancing missions. However, this easy way out becomes addictive if one is not careful. And that's true. You got to be careful. Anything too much is not good for you. And anything in excess, right? But now that we are better at playing the game, we no longer require the quick hit cheat codes. We can become conscious, aware of our awareness through natural means, through the sacred secretion. Okay, this is what we're learning, and we're gonna learn and grow together, right? This is why I'm sharing this information. All right, I'm at 32 minutes. I only got a page and a half left. As an evidence in continuously increasing to prove this evolutionary theory, strict religious practitioners in the future may have to accept the fact that it was hallucinogenics that modeled the way for all religions to follow. That their book of worship was written by communities of men who were able to access these other realities through drug manipulation, whether internally produced via alchemy or not. It is by following the same mystical rules and concepts, preserving the sacred oil, that we aim to accessing the same knowledge and abilities. As hinted previously, it is believed that these abilities include telepathic communication, access to knowledge available in ether, energy of the earth, and even psychokinesis, the ability to move physical objects. I'm working on that myself. Stories of these in action include the miracles performed by Jesus or Yeshua. Okay, accounts of distant monks who are able to use peculiar shapes, instruments to literally lift colossal stone objects, and even Saint Benedict, who could read the minds of and telepathically track his followers. Although I in no way claim to have such powers, I do strongly believe that humans in the past did that. And that enlightenment through strategies such as raising the Christ oil is one way of amplifying the plausibility of these. That said, I think it is also important to note that the preserving of the internal Christ is not the only way to achieve enlightenment. There are many, and one must seek the path that works for their own unique spirit. Okay, let's do a summary so we can wrap it up. More and more, humans' evolution is being linked to psychedelic plant use. Okay. Next, psychedelic experiences are linked to increased neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to learn and rewire old programming and beliefs. Okay. Mushrooms that caused a psychedelic trip would have been abundant to hungry humans in the Sahara back then. Evolving humans and modern shamans receive messages from Mother Earth during trance states, just like the biblical figures received messages from angels whilst dreaming. As access to psychedelic plants became restricted and forbidden, you gotta wonder why that is. Humans sought other means of communicating with God by developing their understanding of human biology, thus activating heaven on earth. Okay, that completes chapter 1. So we've read The Science of Sacred Secretion, chapter 1, and then we've read the chapter 2. Over this part, it's called The Process. We read that. So when I return back for the Sacred Secretion, we're going to dive a little bit deeper. Now, at some point, I want to drop in the God-Man and also the Occult Anayomy of a Man. I had stopped when I had read that chapter 2, and we have part 3 to read. And I think what I'm going to do, since this video is already 36 minutes, I'm going to read about 10 minutes of this, and then we're going to get off here and I'm going to flag it. So we're going to stop at we're going to read part 3, but I'm only going to read a small section, right? So we can get through these, because it's very important for us to correlate all of the data, all of the materials, so we can kind of process what we've learned, right? Okay, so part 3 is the spinal column. So parts 1 and 2. Parts 1, we talked about the brain. Let me see. Yeah, the human body and symbolism is part 1. Sorry. And then in part 2, we talked about the 3 worlds. Sorry, the 3 worlds. So in part 3, now we're talking about the spinal column. And we read a lot on that one. All right. So on this one, it says, connecting the 2 worlds. Heaven above and the sphere of darkness below. In the spinal column, a chain of 33 segments protecting within them the spinal cord. This ladder of bones plays a very important part in the religious symbolism of the ancients. That's why Jesus was 33 when he left. We have these 33-degree Masons. There's a lot of nods to 33. It is often referred to as a winding road or stairway or staircase. Sometimes it is called the serpent. At other times, it's the wand or the scepter. The Hindu teach that there are 3 distinct canals or tubes in the spinal system. They call it the Ida, the Pingala, and the Sushumna. These tubes connect the lower generative centers of the body with the brain. The Greeks symbolized them by the caduceus, or the winged staff of Hermes, right? The little pin with the snake. This consisted of a long rod, the central sushumna, which ended in a knob or a ball, and the pawns of the mandala oblongata. On each side of this knob are wings arched over, using to represent the 2 lobes of the cerebrum. Up this staff and twisted around the 2 serpents, one black and the other white. These represent the Ida and the Pingala. The ancient Hindus have legends concerning the goddess Kundalini, in which it is said that she descended by means of a ladder or cord from heaven to a little island floating in the great sea. Connecting this with the embryology, it is evident that the ladder or cord represents the umbilical cord, while the little island is the solar plexus. When the ladder is cut away from the heaven, the goddess flees in terror to a cave, which is the sacral plexus, where she hides far from the sight of men. Like Amaterasu, the Japanese garden of the shining face, she must be lured from her cave, for while she is there and refuses to come forth, the world is in darkness. Kundalini is a Sanskrit word meaning a serpentine or twisting gas or force. This force, so the Eastern sages claim, can be drawn up through the central spinal canal or the sushumna. When this essence strikes the brain, it opens the centers of the spiritual consciousness and inner perception, and bringing with it its spiritual illumination. The system of culture whereby this is made possible is the most secret teaching of the Eastern saints, for they realize that this spiral twisting force is not only illuminating, but like the serpent, which is in its symbol, also a deadly poison. Smatterings of Eastern occultism are coming all the time into Western world, but we are sorry to say they are bringing with them the endless suffering and sorrow. For these great truths in the lands of individual incapable of rightly understanding or applying them, destroying intelligence and reason. Yeah, that's true. We got a lot of idiots out there. Along the spine are a number of nerve ganglia and plexus. All of these have their place in the religious symbolism. For example, we are told that the early Jews called the sacral plexus and the Sacaglia ganglia the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, which is the lower place. The lower, it's down here. You can't see it on camera. There is a small plexus in the region of the kidneys called the sagittarial plexus, which the ancients knew as the city of Tartarus, where St. Paul fought with the beasts. Higher occultism teaches that the lotus blossoms are nerve centers on the spine, or reflections or negative poles bearing witness of 7 great positive centers of consciousness located in the brain. These 7 function through the centers of the spine in approximately the same way that the 7 spirits before the throne function through the planetary bodies. This disciple is warned not to work with the centers upon the spine, but to labor instead with their true rulers, the centers in the brain. The wandering of the children of Israel in the wilderness and the pilgrimage of the Mohammedan to Mecca is the endless pilgrimages of Hindu holy men who spend their lives wandering from one shrine to another, represent the pilgrimage of the spirit fire, or the kundalini, through the nerve centers along the spine. By certain specifications, or force is turned into these centers one after the other until, when seen clairvoyantly, there are great flower-like areas from which light rays stream like petals. Each of these lotus blossoms has a different number of petals, according to the number of nerves which reach out from it. And do I have a egg on it? Okay, I'm going to get ready to stop it here, but I wanted to show you this. So here's an example right here in this book. And here's another one. And I wanted to show you the picture of the lotus. It's right here. This is what I was thinking when I was reading it right here. So these are the 144. 1,000 times 144 is 144. These are lights. These are your chakras. The lower sacral, solar plexus, hearts, crown. I'm not saying them all in order, but you get the point. This is the crown and this is the lower. But these are all petals, and when it turns on, it blooms like a flower. It's electricity. So that's why I said when you go get your curling photography, you can see your aura. Yeah, I mean it's a proven thing. So I would highly suggest you guys look in your area, see if you can get someone to do that picture and put it up in your house. That's you. That's your energy body. All right, last part. It is said that the logos, okay, so I said each of these lotus blooms have different number of petals according to the number of nerves which branch out from it. So it says, it is said that the logos, when the time came to create the material universe, entered a state of deep meditation, centralizing his thought power upon the 7 flower-like centers of the 7 worlds. Gradually, his life force descended from the brain, which was the great superior world, and striking these flowers one after another, gave birth to the lower worlds, right? When at last his spitfire struck the lowest center of the physical world was created, and his fire was at the base of the spine. When the world returns to him again, and he once more becomes supreme in consciousness, it will be because he withdraws the life from the seven centers, beginning with the lowest, and returns it again to the brain. Thus, the path of evolution from all living things is to rise this fire, whose descendant made their manifestation in their lower worlds possible, and whose raising brings them into harmony once more with the superior worlds. This myth of life forces that came down and took upon itself worlds is found among all civilized nations of the earth. This is the Hiram Abif, who built the Masonic temple, the bodies, and was then slain by the three ventricles which he formed, or vehicles he formed. This is likewise the Christ slain for the sin of the worlds. Because of the fact that this spiritual fire is a twisting serpentine force, just like I showed you in that picture, right? The snake has been used in all parts of the world to represent the world's saviors. The urus worn by the Egyptian priests upon their heads, and I'm probably not saying that right, foreheads, like the brazen serpent raised by Moses in the wilderness, was a symbolic of the Kundalini, the sacred cobra, who, when she raised in the wilderness, saved all who gazed upon her, Moses and the brazen serpent. As the brain is in the center of the divine world, so the solar plexus is the center of the human world. For representing semi-consciousness, it links this unconsciousness below with the consciousness above. Man is not only capable of thinking with his brain, he is capable of a certain phase of thought through the nerve centers of the solar plexus. It will probably be wise at this point to describe the difference between a medium and a clairvoyant. To the average person, there is no difference, but to the mystic, these two phases of spiritual sight are separated by the entire span of human evolution. And I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to put my little marker down here, and I'm going to do like a little pin, and I'm going to stop, and then we'll know where we're going to pick up. So we've read The Occult Anatomy of a Man by Manly P. Hall, The Science of Sacred Secretion, and The Sacred Secretion. So I hope this information has been beneficial to you all. We are going to get through it. I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. I have read a little bit ahead to try to make sure that I'm understanding what I'm reading. And then also I want to make sure that I'm laying it in a way to where we're building upon each chapter, right? This book is highly beneficial too. Flat Atlantis, as you can see, I've got tabs and I've highlighted all throughout this thing. This was superbly written, and all of these books. And at some point we may dive into this, and this will be a separate read altogether, The God Man Made Flesh. But I like to get through with these three books first, and then we can circle back with this book as well. My big brother Red Wolf has done videos over this, and so I would highly suggest you guys subscribing to his channel, as well as Chimero Awa. Also on my Facebook, I have been reading this book by Jamal Shamasi Dean. I read Friday and Saturday excerpts from Don't Call My Dummy No Dummy. Highly recommend you guys purchase this book. I am purchasing the second book this week. And I'm going to try to come online tonight and on Facebook and read a couple of more chapters from this. I think everything that we're reading ties into today, and it's very important for us to be able to break down and understand what this world is, what we encompass inside of one another. It's our birthright. It is our human birthright to understand these things, because they're not taught in our educational system. They're not taught in the matrix. They're not taught out in the world. These are things, like I said before, you're going to have to seek. You're going to have to seek within, and you're going to have to cut yourself away from certain energy, certain people, certain trains of thought, programming, conditioning, and what have you. On my time off this past week, I was able to ground, to go outside, get some sunlight. I'm getting ready to go outside and sun gaze and ground for about a half an hour, and I'm going to meditate while I'm outside. I'm just wishing, love and unity and understanding for everyone who sees this video. I do not say blessings anymore, because I understand what that word means. It's not a positive word, so I don't say blessed anymore. I truly believe that we are all together and we are all one. It's just that we're separated by the conditioning and the indoctrination. So when I say this in love, I mean, you've got to be the change that you want to see around this planet, because it's up to you and I to make a positive change. And I hope by me reading these books and sharing this information to you, it has made a positive contribution in your life. And working towards these things, I believe we will get there. I believe every single person, when it is time, they will arise. The sleeping one will arise. Curiosity is great. You do have to have that, because you have to understand that something is wrong in this world. It's broken. It needs to be fixed. And I dare say it's because we have forgotten who we are, and we're disconnected with the earth, and we're disconnected with the creator of all. So we're going and we're looking outwardly, going into these worship buildings and these centers, praying and tithing and fellowshipping with people, but we're getting further and further away from the creator of all. Because if you study the scriptures and then you understand and you study the occult, you understand what the hidden meanings are of those scriptures. It's talking about the inward man. So you must go within and you have to carve away the world. And that will come down to you cutting away certain family members, certain previous beliefs that you had, certain circles of people that you were running around with, your diet, your exercise, your mindset, the music, the TV, everything. You have to change everything. And I mean, you all have to do the research for yourselves. Don't take my word for it. I'm just explaining to you what I understand and what I see. And I've done this in my own life. So it's a process. But anyway, I appreciate you guys joining me. It's at 51 minutes now, so I'm going to jump off here. I hope you guys have an amazing Monday. And like I said before, be the change you want to see all around this planet, because it's up to you and I to make a positive change. If you can, check out my Facebook. I will be reading from Jamal's book again sometime this evening. All right. You guys have a great afternoon. Peace.